Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Goaltending, where your why is bigger than your excuses. Today is an extremely exciting episode. We're going to get into a two-part episode where we break down first taking your journey, where you started in life, adversity, things that you face, and then taking that to make an impact in other people's lives, like finding something where you can be an impact to others through sharing your personal journey. And a lot of times that journey is filled with hard times, difficulties, challenges, sometimes broken families. And you take what is painful and what hurts, and you use that to create something beautiful. That's part of what we're going to get into in today's episode. Then we're going to get into prioritization, like just drawing everything out. Before we get into all of that, I want to say thank you for tuning in, allowing us to be a part of your journey. Find the takeaways in both parts of this episode, because there's going to be a lot that we bring out. I also want to give a shout out to Prepping with Peppers. This episode is fueled by them. Proud to have them as a sponsor. And now just to get into our guest very briefly, Michael Miller, I had the pleasure of meeting just a few months ago. And prior to that, I had a friend of mine who was like, I got to connect you with Michael. I got to connect you with this guy. An incredible dude, and he's doing outstanding things. And I was like, I want to meet him, And so finally, a few months ago, we had the opportunity to meet, and it all just manifested. Like we clicked, great guy,
super casual,
and just have loved hearing his story, about trying to impact others' lives, and part of that being through starting a nonprofit called Growing with Bridges. Is it a nonprofit or not for profit?
It is a nonprofit.
Nonprofit. Yeah. It's called Growing with Bridges.
One of the many wings, right?
Yeah. So, I'm excited to have you here, Michael Miller. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. It's a privilege to be with you, bro. Like you said, it was really nice to meet you initially, hear a little bit about what you got going on, and so excited to be here. Talk about life, talk about stories, man. How it can be an encouragement to others.
Absolutely. So, I just want to start with like the background. So it's easy to look at, all right, now we have Growing with Bridges, this nonprofit, and we'll get into what that is. But I want to start with the beginning of your journey. What is the challenges, and what was the light that came off that said, I want to do this?
Yeah, man. So I would say just kind of some key highlights, just being the youngest of 9 in a very blended family. Some of those things kind of influenced those experiences. Mm-hmm. What else, man? Lots of death leading into my early 20s, significant deaths, mother, father, brother, uncle, you name it, in any close relationship, man, it was significant loss. And that really led to me being about 22. As a matter of fact, I remember the date. It was October 19th in 2012. And 1 year into marriage, not knowing what I'm doing. I never really had a strong example of what marriage was. And just had a mental health crisis, man. Had a breakdown. It was about a year after my father passed away. My mother started to slowly fade, and a few years later she would pass away too. Mm-hmm. And so my foundation, man, was just imploding. And I was also very confused, man, as someone who was introduced to who Jesus is in 2010. My first 2 years were they were interesting, man, because part of the faith side and component of kind of what I try to do and offer to people who are looking for progression in their life. Mm-hmm. For me, it was one of, I felt like the Lord really gave me just a hunger for His Word, so I was able to read without effort, without it being much of a strain, but then also just being around a group of individuals that were kind of legalistic with the Bible. And so hearing some of their conversations and reading what I'm reading, and then being able to bring those questions I have from the Word, I started to see some contradictory. And so then it was like, here we go. Here's this religion side of things. Here's this is why people dodge all of this. So I was a very confused 22-year-old, man.
Yeah.
And I remember, being in front of being in front of the doctor, and she was, just asking me questions, going to give me this diagnosis and medication and all these things, which is it's totally against my culture, totally against what I'm used to.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm reluctant to accept these things. But then I got in contact with a therapist and started my journey in 2012 and into that. And a lot of conversations, a lot of meetings with her, regular meetings. And it wasn't really much of what she said, although it was her presence, her support, being around me and challenging me with questions that really kind of opened up my journey moving ahead. But also, I just got really hungry for personal development during that time. And I don't remember reading anything particular, but I just remember just knowing that like the only way out of this is to see myself on the other side. Yeah. And this phrase came to mind. It was, be the person you wish you had in your life. And so all these things that I was working through, the personal development, I was like, I need to find someone else that I can share this with. And that really started the journey in a amazing way. Right. So, just being able to walk through that from a mental health side of things, man, it was quite an experience for me because not only was it helping other people to kind of have their tools before they go through something. Yeah. Right. I had already went through it. And so I knew these things were working for me. So it was like, hey, I got something to share. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
So let me get this to you.
Yeah.
Now, let me get it to you because I know I wish I had this sooner.
Absolutely, bro. And so, yeah, that was kind of the beginning of the journey, man. Yeah. And that just led to, gosh, so many years, man, of what I was trying to do was embrace the mundane, because my life was very eventful. And growing up in the way that we grew up, kind of impoverished, and just the things around us, things that we would experience. I was used to really hard stuff. Yeah. You know what I mean? That was kind of my norm. So if things wasn't chaos, it's not right. It's not doing it for me. It feel right. This ain't doing it for me, right? Why is it so chill right now? I'm about to go pick a fight with my wife, man. Something's got to change. But no, man. So yeah, that was 22. And pretty quickly, man, by 25, I did pretty well for myself to get myself back on my feet, man. One of my kind of core beliefs is make sure you have community, make sure you have people around you. And so I found a really good community to be a part of during that time at 25. Had a guy who started to pour into my life, and he introduced me to his mentor. And he was actually, and sadly, he was one of the guys who I lost. He started to what we call discipleship and more in the faith-based lane. Yeah. He took his own life a few months after. But me and the guy that he got me in contact with, the guy that was discipling him, we've locked arms ever since then. That was 2015. And so just having those, like I said, having that strong community in my life, those next 3 years, man, was like extreme growth. Yeah. And all the while they're pouring into me, I'm pouring back into others. And that's really where I started to find a passion for what I was doing, and it made sense of my story. If like everything that I experienced, when I was able to invite people into my life, be invited into theirs, share these things with them, watch them grow and flourish, it was like, man, this is awesome, right? Yeah. So that was not my full-time job at the time. I was still just a mailman doing my thing, providing. I go back to 2015. My mom had passed away, and then about 26 days later, I became a father myself, right? And so, yeah, man, it was awesome, bro. And also, it comes with that bittersweetness, right? Because it was like, man, how am I supposed to be a father right now when I just want to be a son? Like that was challenging. Yeah. But it's been an amazing journey to be a part of their lives and experience that. And again, inviting these younger people into my life so they can kind of see that and have references. Yeah. And then all of that combined, bro, by the time 2020 hit, which comes with, I mean, you could say 2020, everybody has their own version of what they, you know what I mean? And for me, it was a lot like everybody else's too. It was super chaotic. It's weird. Delivering mail. I'm finally coming into my own person, heading into my 30s. And a guy that I have known since high school, and I was kind of pouring in his life. I came back to work one day because I got him a job at the post office, and he was extra smiling this day, and I was like, bro, what's going on, man? And he was really excited, man. He shared with me that his mother was about to start this business, and I'm like, man, that's what's up. I was like, tell me about it. He was like, because he's about to be a part of this. And the more he's sharing, bro, the more he's talking about all my core principles, everything that I'm about. I'm like, what is this again? And so he shares with me basically what peer support is, peer support specialist. And we started working with all the youth. And at that point, I hadn't really dabbled in youth and seeing the practicalities of the skill sets that I was able to use and how I was going to be influenced them.
Mhm.
But just through studying, man, a lot was going on in 2020, and so I had to learn about what politics was and kind of everybody's beliefs on why people were poor and all of these things. And so
Yeah.
I'm learning all these things just out of a response of what's happening around me. But then I'm getting this opportunity to go into the West End of Louisville and help these same people
Yeah.
who, they, qualify as these, the people that everybody was talking about, man.
Yeah.
I hate to say it without it sounding negative,
Yeah.
but to me that was an amazing experience, man. I got to, get certified as a peer support specialist, start to develop some of these things as a practice, and things were just going super well, dude. Just being able to not only receive the benefits of what it is to be a business person, but to show up every day and have that kind of impact, it was amazing. It was an amazing time. And so that's when I kind of got my feet wet, man. And it's been uphill ever since.
Right.
It's been uphill ever since.
Man, so I'm just loss is guaranteed in life.
Absolutely.
Like you can't live without losing somebody, something at some point in your life, and it happens at different times for everybody. It sounds like I would say, based on what you just said, like a lot more loss than a lot of people experience at that young of an age, like that early in life.
Yeah.
And so I always just think about there's different ways that you can respond to things.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And because I know plenty of people who came from adverse backgrounds and they played the victim or they allowed it to make them a victim.
Yeah.
And just like said, it's life and this is what it is.
Right.
And they accepted
Yep.
They accepted the bad things, but you didn't, and you found a way to get out of it. Is there, like, if you just think about it, is there anything that stands out to you on like why that path? Why didn't you take the easy way of like letting it keep you down, or like what is it that drove you to bring yourself out of like that really hard situation?
That's a good question, bro. Man, you gonna kind of get me emotional, man. What comes to mind, from the back of your question, again, the youngest of 9. My dad was 40 when he had me. So he was a much older man, and he dealt with his demons. He had a very rough time. Just to kind of go in a little bit of that background, things really shifted for me at about 16 years old. He had his first stroke, and that changed so much. Like, I think I really started to become a man during that moment. Like, I had to grow up too soon. But he always used to say it from the time I was little, man. He was like, "You're a leader, and you're independent." I mean, from the time, I mean, we make fun of it as a family, but I couldn't even pronounce independent back then. But I'm independent, and so I think just some of those things, man, of having a voice in your life like that, whoever that may be, like, if you don't have a father, but it was just one of those things where even in sports, I carried myself that way. Not intentionally. It's not like, oh, I am the leader. It was just like, this is what is required from me. This is what is expected of me.
Yeah.
And so, man, being hit in the face with that kind of, I guess, traumatic experiences, but then suffering a mental health crisis like I did, because that answered some things for me too. As somebody who grew up, I think, really misunderstood in the education space. I love what education has done, like with IEPs and all of these things. Like those would have been so clutch for me back in the day.
Yeah.
They didn't really know how to take me as someone. They were just like, well, we'll just put him in like a learning disability class. And it's like, I'm in this space. I don't fit in. Yeah. I just think differently. You telling me the how, and I need to know the why. And so just being wired the way that I was, and then facing that thing, I was able to kind of look at it objectively and be like, how did I get here? Why is this happening? Right. And so I didn't let the story just become who I am. It was more like, this is what is happening. How do we respond to this? Why is this happening? What is a mental health crisis? Like, why am I breaking down? That's kind of crazy, And so I would say that was probably the biggest thing, man, is having a voice in my life at a very early age. And, Yeah, and just tapping into almost kind of like that athletic background, man.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, playing sports and things like that, but I love watching movies like Creed,
Yeah.
those kind of things, right? You know what I mean? Like, so it's just like, you know what? I'm gonna make my story. You know what I'm saying? This is a moment. This is a moment we can switch it up. We can switch it up. So,
and we've all got a story, right? Like, absolutely. It depends on what character you want to play.
That's a bar.
Man. Health, fitness, fat loss, sleep, all goals that are impacted by the fuel you put into your body. I've tried meal prepping at home, and I've tried multiple meal prep companies, including those that deliver, but I'll be honest, nothing has been better than the meals I get from Prepping with Peppers. They offer fresh, never frozen meals on a weekly rotating basis, so you don't have to get tired of eating the same meals over and over again. So save yourself some time for the things that matter most by ordering your meals at preppingwithpeppers.com. So I think an important thing to highlight from that is you got that positive word from your father. Mm-hmm. And not everybody has a father necessarily. Mm-hmm. Like, I grew up, like, my dad wasn't around. He was in jail. A lot of issues. He was an alcoholic and an addict and all of these things. But there were still, like, I can tell you, like, I remember impactful people in my life in some way that said something or did something that opened my mind to more, or that made me feel valued, or like that I can make an impact and be more. And so I think that exists for everybody in some capacity, but you have to open your eyes to being able to see it. Absolutely. Because somebody might be trying to tell you something, but I also remember plenty of times where I shut down. Yeah. And it didn't matter what you had to say to me. Like, it's not that time. Yeah. I wasn't receiving it. Mm-hmm. And so the sooner, I would say, that you are able to, like, open your eyes, your mind, to see that there are people that want to help. There are people that will give advice. That's a huge thing to be able to receive that. Now, you mentioned peer support. Mm-hmm. And my full-time role with the Kentucky National Guard, I'm the Resilience, Risk Reduction, and Suicide Prevention Coordinator for the Kentucky Guard. Yeah. And so I had the opportunity to go to a suicide prevention conference this past year. Okay. And, like, the number one thing for impact to suicide prevention was peer support. That's what's up. That's cool. It's peer support. It's people being people and friends, and, like, showing that they care, making people understand that, like, there are people that care, that want to be there. Absolutely. So powerful. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I want to transition that to, you took all of your background, your challenges that you faced, came up. Now, what led to, or what started the idea of starting Growing with Bridges? Can you talk about what Growing with Bridges is? And
So it starts with kind of those early footprints of walking into the peer support side, and that was more of the private sector. So just really filling out what was going on and just being in that space, and being able to be in a creative space too, where it's like, I appreciate my partner, man, because he allowed me during that time to apply whatever it is I might be thinking through. So it's just like, okay, we got this group of kids at this point in time with all their different backgrounds. Some of them, like you said, experiencing stuff at an early age. I mean, I was, like I said, 16 to 20, things started to shift. Mm-hmm. Being these kids are losing their fathers to gun violence at like 8. Yeah. And I'm supposed to try to sit with this kid. I have nothing to offer but my presence. Like, there was times that that's all I could do. And so just being able to be unique and creating ways for that to happen. So that just really, man, that transitioned into also seeing some of the roadblocks, some of the obstacles that we had to face from the business side. Because peer support is something that is, it's insurance based. So it's something that you bill insurance. It's a billable service. But what I didn't like is there were some kids who, had a mother like mine, man. My mom, she raised us on the Waffle House wages, bro, my whole life. And so she also was someone who didn't want to take from the government. And so some of those things were kind of roadblocks, but pride was a big thing for her. And I think that helps us to kind of carry on. Yeah. I see it in all my siblings, man. It's been a great thing watch them too. But being able to take some of that information and then hit this roadblock of some of the kids who didn't have the right insurance, they couldn't get our services.
Yeah.
And I kept seeing that multiple times throughout our probably 2 years in this journey. And I was like, something's got to change. Something's got to shift here. What is nonprofit space? And so I started to kind of open my mind to that reality. And very quickly I was like, okay, it checks enough boxes for me. We're going to do it.
Yeah.
And it's really cool, man. I was in the West Coast, not kind of in the West Coast, I was in the West Coast. So my first time there, I was in Arizona, and we're kind of traveling northern Arizona down to Phoenix area. And we got to Devil's Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you ever heard of that.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it was. First of all, it's scary. The hike was beautiful. Getting to the bridge was like, I'm not going out there. It was, right. I had to face my fear that day. But that's kind of where the name came, because it's a natural bridge, and it was just like, okay, you can build a bridge, but let's be growing bridges, and then kind of work through that ideology, right? So the name almost presented itself before we had the ideology behind it. But then I shared that with the team, the people that has been supporting me through that whole journey. Like they saw me with Faith Warrior Company all the way to Growing Bridges, and then they became a part of Growing Bridges. Trey, right? Shout out to Trey, who put this together. But some of those folks, man, that's what brought that together. And like I said, the community aspect. These are guys. Some of them were pouring into me, and I was pouring into the guys underneath me, and so Growing Bridges brought all of us together as one group. And it was such a special time, man, to be able to take Growing Bridges, take the ability to be able to say, no, we're not going to let your insurance stop you from being able to get this service. You qualify. Yeah. So how do we make this happen? And so there was that side of the nonprofit space, which was awesome, and it worked really well to be able to support these families, because we are a family-focused mentorship. So we don't just work with the youth, we work with the whole family unit. And so being able to do that was, I think that's what makes Growing Bridges what it is, because again, those other ones, they have these roadblocks, they have spaces where, hey, we can only do this if we can bill your insurance. But we didn't have to do that. And so man, it was just thinking about some of the families, some of the kids, man. It's just been a beautiful thing that I've gotten to do over the last 2 years. I know you said we're going to talk a little bit more, but there were some roadblocks for myself personally during that time too, during the Growing Bridges side. So I'm excited to see what is still continuing to become. I don't think we've really arrived yet either. So it's cool.
And so our friend Trey, he is the one that connected us, that we met through. I remember him describing it to me and talking about that.
I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. So we're just hanging out. He's like, man, I got to tell you about this nonprofit my friends got going and everything, and that I'm involved with. And he would, that's what he said, helping the whole family unit. Yeah. And meeting them where they're at. Mm-hmm.
Good job, Trey.
Look, a couple words, but I was like, wow. There are so many roadblocks. And can be to receive health insurance being one of those roadblocks for certain kinds of help and care. And not everybody either has insurance or has the right kind of insurance. Yeah. So that being a huge roadblock in itself, but that meeting the family unit where they are is the thing that stood out to me. Okay. Because I was like, all right, first off, if we find a way to help a kid in a bad situation, but they're still going back to the house.
Exactly. You got it.
To the same parents not getting the help. Yeah. That's where when Trey told me that, and I was like, that's going to be huge. Yeah. That's going to impact.
Here's the secret. It's because it's not really a secret. It's meeting the kid because the parents is like, I need help with him. But then switching it and just saying, Mom, you need rest. Right. It's hearing everything you're saying. You're giving me the details. This is what he's struggling with. This is all of that stuff. But I was 16 watching my mom try to raise us on Waffle House and watching my dad have his stroke and not really sure if he was even going to make it out of it. Yeah. The second one is the one he eventually died a few years later. But so for me, as a 16-year-old high school kid, I'm playing varsity sports for my second year. I got the privilege to play my sophomore year in varsity. So in my mind, man, my goals of the things that, you know, as a youth, you try to realize for yourself, it's got potential.
Yeah.
Instantly. I'm not thinking about that no more. I'm thinking about a job.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about how can I help provide for my family, right?
Mm-hmm.
My mom's, again, she was a beast, man. She would not allow me to go get a job.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that sports, I was absent from that. Now I'm not thinking about those things. And so being a kid who experienced that myself, now I can offer these mothers these things, because it's usually the single moms, man, who are having this. And so it's just like, let me take your son off your hands. And like the first phase really of what we do kind of in my methodology is giving mom rest and letting her regulate, because we can feel that as a child. We can feel that stress. So you, like you said, you didn't have your father, but I'm assuming you had your mother in your life.
Mm-hmm.
You knew, man, you knew what you could and couldn't do and what days, and you walk in and she has that look on her face and you're like, all right, I can't ask for this today. Or, you know, those kind of things, man. And so, yeah, that is, again, I say it's a secret. It's not a secret, but it is something that it can get overlooked.
Right.
So,
no, I love that part of the mission. And I think that brings us to a great point to end this part one, so that we can transition to part two, where we get into like right now where we are. So we've gone through how we got here.
Yeah.
The starting of Growing Bridges.
Oh boy.
And so first, I just want to say, you know, thank you for joining, being a part of this, sharing your story, hopefully with the ability to impact other people's lives and to find opportunities to take what they've gone through and turn it into something to help others. So thank you all for tuning in, allowing us to be a part of your journey. Make sure that you catch part two, where we get deeper into Michael's story and where he is now, the challenges he's facing with Growing Bridges. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure that you comment, like, subscribe, join the conversation, and let's grow.